Morning, everyone, and welcome to the launch of COPE Galway's annual report for 2023. I'd like to extend a particularly warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sharon Lambert, psychologist and expert in trauma-informed practice. We look forward to hearing from you, Sharon, a little later. I'm joined online by Aisling McKellen, Vice Chairperson at COPE Galway, and Martin O'Connor, our Assistant CEO. Our Chairperson and CEO unfortunately can't be with us today due to other commitments. At COPE Galway, we invest considerable time in the production of our annual report, as we feel it is important to reflect on the year past, acknowledge the challenges experienced, and appreciate what has been achieved and learned. Perhaps most importantly, however, our annual report gives us an opportunity to share the experience of some of our clients, staff, and volunteers, and to acknowledge the very considerable support of our community. Throughout this online launch, you'll get some insights into our work and impact. You'll hear about the numbers of people supported, some of the projects and initiatives undertaken, and how we have progressed our journey to embed trauma-informed practice into everything we do. In a moment, we'll hear from Aisling, our Vice Chair, and Martin, our Assistant CEO. We have a panel discussion with our heads of our homeless, senior support and domestic abuse services. We'll hear from our keynote speaker, Sharon, and we'll finish by 12 o'clock with some brief closing remarks from Martin. I invite you to take the time to read our annual report. This is where you'll find the stories of some of those whose lives have been positively impacted by COPE Galway this year. So thank you for taking the time to join us. I'd like to introduce you now to Aisling McKellen, Vice Chairperson of COPE Galway.
Thank you, Sharon. A very good morning and welcome to you all. Being trauma-informed is a theme you will read and hear about many times during this hour as we present COPE Galway's achievements and impacts from last year. In 2023, COPE Galway entered Phase 3 of a training plan to embed trauma-informed practice and care. Our guest speaker today, Dr. Lambert, created the training package, which has been implemented across the entire organisation. All staff from administration to frontline workers attended the workshops. It's an achievement that I think reflects COPE Galway's ability to exceed expectations despite its scale. But what does this mean? COPE Galway recognises that everyone experiences trauma in their lives, and that it's likely that their clients have experienced this at higher levels than the general population. Understanding how trauma can shape behaviour leads to better support for both clients and staff in ways that minimise re-traumatising people. In 2023, COPE Galway made a difference for 3,427 people in our community. This is an overall increase in demand of almost 16% across COPE Galway's homeless, domestic abuse and senior support services. Yes, we have to refer to numbers in our annual report. We never forget that each of these children, teens and adults are members of our families, our friendships and our community. Martin will shortly speak to you about some of the people behind these impact statistics, whose stories emerge from a place of trauma, but follow a path of hope and opportunity. Let me emphasise that COPE Galway's impactful work was carried out uninterrupted, even while the global recruitment and retention crisis remained its biggest challenge in 2023. Our homeless service in particular was hit with severe staffing shortages. All of this was against a background of a historic housing and homelessness crisis, higher than ever levels of reported domestic abuse, and increasing situations when older people are facing isolation and compromised nutrition and health. Despite this, and this is something that consistently impresses our board of directors, what shone through these challenges was the steadfast responsiveness, professionalism, and creative thinking of COPE Galway's staff and volunteers, as well as the resilience of its clients. As you will learn from the staff accounts in this report, which Martin will go into detail on shortly, COPE Galway achieved positive progress for their clients because of a staff approach that keeps the client at the heart of what they do. The board and I wish to sincerely thank COPE Galway's highly skilled professionals whose tireless efforts continue to meet the immediate and long-term needs of the people they serve. As Vice Chairperson, I wish to reaffirm COPE Galway's commitment to the strategic objectives that guide this organisation and that shape this report. Over the past 4 years, we have adapted our strategy to meet the demands of an increasingly unpredictable world, working through challenges and seeing real progress in talent attraction and retention. The challenges ahead remain significant, but so too is our resolve. Our board of directors is committed to the highest standards of governance, transparency and accountability. The 2023 annual report is structured to reflect these standards within our 6 strategic priorities and with an emphasis on prevention and early engagement work. Finally, on behalf of the volunteer board of directors, I wish to thank everyone who supported COPE in 2023. It's thanks to your enormous efforts that COPE Galway achieves its ambitious work. Your generosity allows us to pioneer innovative initiatives that directly benefit the people we serve. I think what unites us all is a deep commitment to creating change and to supporting and empowering people in our community who need it the most. Now I'll hand you over to Martin O'Connor, COPE Galway's Assistant CEO and Head of Operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisling, and good morning, everyone. Every year, the annual report offers a valuable opportunity to pause and reflect on our meaningful work and the profound impact this has had on the lives of people in our community. When you read this report, you will see that our people, our clients, our staff and our volunteers are at the heart of everything we do at COPE Galway. As Aisling mentioned, the real-life accounts in this report are a vivid reminder of why our work is so vital. Each story of overcoming adversity and finding hope in despair is testament to the strength and determination of the human spirit. I will come back to this in a moment. Aisling has also already mentioned some of the challenges we faced in 2023, including an increase in demand for our services and many experiencing even more complex challenges in their lives. But today I want to acknowledge what we as an organisation have achieved despite these challenges. COPE Galway's work in 2023 reached and supported 3,427 members of the community. Despite the ongoing recruitment and retention crisis, our staff and volunteers continue to operate our full range of services, and as you already heard, did so uninterrupted and to the highest standards. We also progressed the implementation of new and improved approaches, most notably the further rollout of trauma-informed practice. Our homeless services provided 1,278 people with assistance and support during a deepening housing and homelessness crisis, and found innovative ways to improve the experience of families and individuals spending longer periods in emergency accommodation. You will read in Martin's story how he and his colleagues at our Family Hub utilised innovative ideas to work in a more trauma-informed way, emphasising learning and mentorship. You will also read that last summer, a group of men living at our Fairgreen hostel devised and painted the City of Tribes mural, a tribute to Galway. Our domestic abuse service responded to an overall 37% increase in demand, including an 87% increase in crisis support calls, likely due to an increased awareness of the supports available for those experiencing domestic abuse. Not everyone in an abusive relationship needs refuge. Of the nearly 1,000 women who were supported by our domestic abuse service in 2023, just over 12% used refuge. Many women were provided with support in the community by our outreach team and through our support helpline. Elaine, in her story, talks about the rapid expansion and enhancement of the Solace O Children and Young People Service in response to client need, from parenting support to boosting the resilience of young people. The service has also developed an educational programme that reached 600 young teenagers at 12 schools across Galway last year. Our senior support services engaged with 992 older people in 2023, offering social and healthy activities to prevent isolation and providing almost 83,000 fresh, healthy meals, a 16.4% increase on 2022. The service positively impacts in all sections of our community, with volunteering and employment opportunities, befriending and social inclusion programmes, and innovative meal developments by our professional team at Meals for Health. Heaven's story really brings home the scale of the daily service operated at Community Catering, with an average of 230 meals prepared and delivered each day. Thank you to the COPE Galway team, to our staff and our volunteers for making all of it happen. Now I want to take a moment to return to our clients. James tells us about his journey from what he calls hitting rock bottom after the sudden death of his mother, his subsequent homelessness, and his plans now to move into his own home and to enroll in a new course. Maeve tells a difficult story of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, which led her to seek refuge and safety, and an empowered journey towards a safe and fulfilling life. Jerry, who loves to hit the high notes as part of the COPE Galway singing group, is the epitome of someone who is aging well and who motivates others to remain active and engage in their communities. And Eileen and Sabina are great examples of people who value and pursue their independence. Thank you all sincerely for kindly and bravely sharing your stories, and to all our clients who inspire our sense of purpose at COPE Galway each day. So I'd urge you to please take time to read these very personal accounts so kindly shared in this report. Volunteering is central to the unique culture of COPE Galway. In 2023, we achieved another Investing in Volunteers award, which demonstrates our commitment to providing a positive experience for our volunteers. I want to thank the 192 people who regularly volunteered last year and the hundreds of occasional and corporate helping hands volunteers. Each one of you makes a difference in our community. An energetic and skilled team of volunteers also make up COPE Galway's board of directors. I want to thank our directors for providing leadership, oversight and guidance, ensuring the highest standards of governance. The collective generosity, solidarity and support of our broader Galway community, individuals, businesses, funders, media and local partners, not only sustain our essential services, but allow us to pioneer new initiatives that directly benefit those we serve. In 2023, COPE Galway's income was €10.5 million. 77% of this income was funded by the state, with the remaining 23% funded through philanthropy, fundraising and earned income. Details of our income and expenditure are set out in the annual report. We would like to express our appreciation to the statutory funding bodies and those individuals within these bodies at local, regional and national level who work so closely with us in ensuring that these funding arrangements are in place. Sustainable state funding at a level that allows us to attract and retain staff and that is based on a full cost recovery is vital to the delivery of essential services on behalf of government and at the standards required and deserved by our clients. We look forward to continuous engagement with our state funders so we can continue to meet the needs of those we support in the community. We also want to express our thanks to our donors and supporters who enable the delivery and further development of our services. The philanthropic funding of Solas Óg, which you can read about in this report, is a wonderful example of this. And now, to give you a further flavour of the impact of our work, I'd like to introduce our panel discussion. This is an engaging and lively discussion recorded earlier with our heads of service and facilitated by Alva Preen of our Domestic Abuse Service.
Thanks, Martin, and welcome everyone to our COPE Galway Heads of Service panel discussion. For the last 15 minutes or so, we have heard about the work of COPE Galway. Something that really stands out is how basic human rights are being impacted for so many. I want to ask our panel, how does our work address this? Gillian, I might start with you.
Hi, Alba. Yeah, thanks a million. I suppose our service, the Domestic Abuse Service, that is why our service exists, is to try and make sure that women and children have a place of safety at home. Home is meant to be where you are safe, and that's where we try to concentrate. Most of our work is out into the community, where we have our outreach service that we deliver to meet women where it's safe to do so and help validate their experience, to walk with them on their journey. And to help them be able to identify natural resources so that they can stay safe in their own homes and hopefully feel that they can then speak to maybe family and friends about the situation that's going on. Therefore, if people need to end up coming to refuge, we really want it to be the last resort because a person's safety and their home is the most important thing. Last year, over 1,000 women came and met with our outreach service out in the community, and it just shows how more courageous women are coming and knowing that something isn't right within their relationship and trying to change that and to try and get themselves back on the road that they would like to be on. So we really work closely with them, and our team goes out anywhere across Galway City and County. Unfortunately, then sometimes things escalate and people have to come into us in the refuge, and everybody's welcome to come into us. And we're always there. We're 24/7 service to kind of hold that space for women as long as they need it.
When Gillian talks about refuge, what's very interesting is that the women and children who are in refuge are not counted in official homelessness figures. So last year, our homeless services worked with 1,278 people, including 330 children who were experiencing homelessness. And Gillian made a connection between safety and home, and that was very big for our clients also. Having a home is not only about having shelter, it's about having a stable base, a safe place to be, somewhere affordable, accessible. And without having that stable base, people cannot thrive in life. And we've been working as homeless services over the last number of years to try to extend and expand our community-based solutions. Our emergency responses are very much needed for people experiencing homelessness, but the volume of time that people spend in that emergency space is far too long, and we have seen the impact that it's had, especially on children, socially, developmentally, on their mental health and on their well-being. So we've been really working to try to extend our services, particularly those provided by our resettlement services.
Thank you, Sinead. What might not be as obvious in society is that people's rights are also impacted as we age. Jackie, can you say something about that?
Yes, the right to age with dignity is so fundamental to our ageing journeys. And part of achieving that is having access to good, nutritious food in a format that we can actually consume it and access it. And that's why our Meals for Health social enterprise has developed specifically to address that issue. We produce nutritious, delicious food, but we produce it in a format that can be consumed by people in older age who may or may not have issues in terms of possibly swallow or just needing the food to be in a different format. And very often that's not readily accessible. So that's really important. And another aspect in terms of human rights is that one of the most important determinants of positive ageing is actually the quality of our social connections. And in our society at the moment, we're experiencing the highest levels ever of loneliness. And so in our community support work, we offer opportunities for people who live in the community to come together in social circles and facilities and avail of opportunities to engage with other people, possibly having a meal together or engaging in activities, classes, learning opportunities. So those would be a couple of examples.
Lovely. Thank you, Jackie. And that leads nicely to my next question. For the past few years at COPE Galway, we have been increasing our focus on prevention and early engagement in order to avoid people experiencing crisis situations. For COPE Galway, this work is often centred around addressing what is foreseeable and taking action to address and mitigate this. Could you give me an example of what prevention looks like in your service?
Sure. Well, probably unknown to a lot of people is that our ageing journey is actually very much within our control, much more so than we realise. And in Galway, actually, we just had Positive Ageing Week last week, and we in COPE Galway, along with a number of other partners, put a lot of effort into promoting a more positive imagery and narrative around ageing and our ageing journeys, because actually most people in older age do experience very healthy, happy and long lives. But that's not always what we see in the media. So we try and get the message out there during Positive Aging Week and throughout all of our work that the earlier we start, and by focusing on some kind of core fundamental areas, we can actually have a lot of control over our aging journeys. And we support that in our work then. In our meal service, we encourage people to think about eating well and eating nutritiously at the earliest possible opportunity so that they can maintain good health into later life and not just see a meal service as a need in a time of crisis. And also in our community work, we provide, like I said already, we provide a lot of opportunities for people to support their ageing journeys while living in the community.
Lovely. Thank you. Something we can all take note of. Okay. Sinead, would you like to?
Yeah, I suppose when I think of prevention and early interventions in our services, our homeless services are provided to individuals and also to families, and there are residential and non-residential services. So I could come up with quite a number of examples really of that type of work. There's two in particular that are springing to mind. And one is the tenancy sustainment support that is provided by our families team and by our resettlement team. So when people resettle into the community, they are provided with key working, care and case management, basic life skills support, anything that will support them to sustain their new home and reintegrate into the community. I think that that's really important work because it prevents people from falling into cyclical homelessness. And then in terms of services for children, we have a service called Helping Kids First. It's a project that's run within our wider family service. And within that, we have a worker who works with every individual family and creates with each child an individualised, child-centred care and support plan. And our worker, Jana, looks at the needs of everybody and considers their educational supports that they might require, social supports that they might require, and helps to link them in with community support, and also runs a lot of really fun activities for children. And it sounds like something that maybe wouldn't seem too important, fun, but when people are in emergency accommodation for long periods of time, they're in overcrowded situations quite frequently. It's a very difficult place to be, and any fun and anything light that can be brought into the environment is so very important. So Jana sends the children to summer camps. She links in and finds what each individual's child's hobby might be, and connects them with those in the community, and just works really hard to provide children with normal childhood experiences that they would otherwise be denied. And in working so intensively with them to support their development, we really strongly feel that it will support children to themselves have more fulfilled lives and brighter futures, and hopefully futures where they will not be homeless.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you can see that mirrored within our service as well. We have a schools programme that goes out to work with children and young people to see what healthy and unhealthy relationships are. And when we're trying to tackle and get towards a society of zero tolerance towards DSGBV or domestic sexual and gender-based violence, the young people are really the ones that are hopefully paving the way and are absolute advocates for driving things like this on. We've been lucky to be funded through philanthropy to be able to deliver this across 600 students. And you would hope then that has also trickled out to their friends and across their social media platforms. And we went to 12 schools to do that. Another part of our preventative work has been the introduction of the Domestic Leave Act. That has shown that there's a real need to be able to talk better in the workplace. Like, people spend so many hours in work, and that might be the only place that they're safe. And to be able to have that conversation, or know even by having that piece of legislation there that you can go and talk to your employer. So a lot of employers have come forward and asked us to reach out to them and to work with them and their HR team around how to be with somebody that wants to avail of their leave, and to be able to name it, which I'm sure is a scary thing within work. But the fact that you are bringing in the training means that you are opening that conversation. So we've gone out and done that. But also as COPE Galway being thought leaders when it comes to domestic violence, we realise that the 5 days that the government introduced simply aren't enough. And therefore we've introduced 10 days. So we're really kind of practicing what we preach as such. And I think between the schools, between all the outreach work that we discussed, we really are seeing a lot more people coming forward to disclose around domestic abuse. So in 2022, we had just short of 4,000 calls come through. And this year we've had over 7,000 phone calls come through, which is a massive increase. So it's nearly 12 o'clock. So roughly about 10 calls will have come through already to our helpline. And they're 10 people that have reached out courageously to kind of go, you know what, my life isn't what it should be at the moment and I deserve better, and they do. And that's why we have the service that we have, and that's why we're really trying to get out there and into the community to be able to make it more of a community stance against domestic abuse. It's not just a problem for domestic abuse services.
Absolutely. And you touched on the wider community there, Gillian. What difference has the support of the community made to your service?
The support across Galway City and County has just been phenomenal for our service. I mean, there isn't a thing I think that we've ever put an ask out for that we haven't got. The support of the community has meant that one woman has been able to get her fridge for her forever home. She was able to go in, pick whichever one she wanted and have it delivered to her house. Another lady has been able to get her locks changed, her windows fixed, stuff like that, that, you know, we're, as a community, we are showing that, you know, what has happened to you is not your fault and you shouldn't have to be the one that picks up the price tag for it. So that with the support of the community, we've been able to do that. The philanthropy support to be able to run the service is just, I mean, we're after running our pilot programme in the schools, and that has just proven to be absolutely phenomenal, and the feedback from the kids has just been brilliant. So we'd be lost without the community.
Thank you so much, Gillian. Okay, Sinead?
I suppose one thing worth remembering is that our homeless services clients are Galway-based people, and they are a part of our community. And they are a community who very much supports our teams, and our teams really appreciate that. Then we work great with the people who we serve. And then the wider community does recognise COPE Galway as being a Galway charity, and the support that we're provided with is absolutely incredible. We have so much goodwill from the community, and it's really evident in events like the Christmas Swim and the Business Sleep Out that are run each year. The support that we get from the community really enables us to tailor the services we provide to each individual, and it allows us to give more than just basic service delivery. It enhances our environments. We're able to upgrade our facilities, and we're able to look at each person, what they might need, and provide them with things that will help them in their journey through homelessness.
Lovely. Thanks, Sinead. And Jackie, I imagine the support of the community is of paramount importance to the senior support services.
Absolutely. I think above all the services in COPE Galway, our service practically depends on the community. So, for example, in our Meals for Health social enterprise, we have over 100 volunteers, and essentially without their daily support, we wouldn't be able to produce and deliver the over 80,000 meals last year that were delivered outwards. Also, while we do get state funding, and we're very grateful for that, many of our services, particularly our community services, have developed initially through the support of philanthropic entities. And it has given us the scope to actually pilot and prove the worth of our services, and then be able to attract ongoing state funding. And what I mean by that is, we'll say our Helping Hands Befriending programme, which offers an opportunity for older people who are confined to their homes to have a volunteer visit them. We wouldn't have been able to start and run that without grant funding. And we also have great support from some of the local corporates in Galway, and particularly we work in some housing clusters across the city, which is where a group of older people live in like a small estate, which is built specifically for that purpose. But they find over time that they're unable maybe to maintain the communal areas, and So corporates are coming in regularly to these housing clusters and helping to keep them looking nice and looking maintained and well painted. And then that creates a lovely communal space for people who are able to, meet their neighbours and socialise more. So in so many ways, we couldn't function without the help of the community.
Amazing and very hopeful and inspiring, which brings me on to my last question. Hope is one of COPE Galway's values, and the importance of having hope can never be overstated. What gives you the most hope for the future?
Wow, big question, Alva. Our society is ageing and we are also living a lot longer. And my hope for the future is that we truly value the role and the wisdom and the contribution of our older generation, and that we are able to offer the supports that are needed if and when they're needed. And I can see that when we're in a position to do that through our work, I have seen evidence of the enormous difference that we can make in the lives of just one person at a time. So that's my hope.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jackie.
I think that idea of that just one person at a time is also very true within the domestic abuse service. And my hope is definitely in the women and children that I see that reach out to us and come. They are just absolutely phenomenal, and they constantly inspire me and hold me to account to make sure that we deliver the service that is right and that they deserve. And with that in mind, then the staff team across the whole of the domestic abuse service, they constantly give me hope, because every day they work in an area that isn't for everybody, and they hold it with such compassion and kindness, and they are the first person maybe that woman or child has actually spoken to about it, and how they respond to that is life-changing for that person. So as long as there's people coming forward to say what's happening isn't right, and that there's people like the staff team there to meet them where it is, I have huge hope for what's going to happen in the future.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Similarly to Gillian, Alva, the people that I work with give me great hope, both the staff teams and our clients. The people who we work with who are experiencing homelessness show great resilience and have been through such difficult times in their lives. But one thing that gives me huge hope is that homelessness is a solvable problem through the provision of housing solutions. And we have the great privilege at times of seeing people move into their forever home. That's the most hopeful thing of all for me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that it is fitting to end on a positive note, a note of hope for our clients and hope for society. Thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts with our audience today. I would now like to introduce a little video with highlights of the year just past.
thank you to the panel and apologies for the technical glitches just towards the end of it. And thanks to the team for producing the video highlighting what happened throughout 2023. There's great satisfaction in seeing these snippets and the breadth of the impact of our work during 2023. And now I have the great pleasure of introducing you to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sharon Lambert, leading psychologist and expert in trauma. As you heard Aisling say earlier, Sharon developed the training package in trauma-informed care that has been key to advancing our work in this area across our whole organisation. Sharon knows that world we operate in, as she has extensive experience working with socially excluded groups in community settings similar to ours.
Thanks very much, Martin. I look like I was on a time delay there. I was searching for the unmute button, but somebody has done it for me. And thanks for inviting me to come and speak today. And it was, fantastic to see just the huge amount of work that's being done across the service in so many different domains. So what I want to talk about is, I guess, so many people who were on this session will know, what trauma-informed care is, but I want to just briefly talk about what it is and why we should do it and why COPE Galway is doing it. So, everybody who has spoken today has spoken about the context of the society that we're living in now. So, everybody, I think, has mentioned about increasing in complexity. And we all exist within a context, and every single factor of our lives influences each other. So the unprecedented housing crisis has placed a significant challenge on individuals, on families, on communities, and on services. And homelessness itself is a trauma. Domestic violence is something that has existed for a very long time. More and more people are coming forward now. Domestic violence is a trauma. And when we think about trauma, sometimes people think about what we talk about, the big T's, as we call them. So big traumatic events like, as an accident, or violence, and all of those things are traumas. There's also what we think of as well is small T's, small traumas. So these are all day, every day things that can have a huge impact on somebody's physical and mental health. So when we think about trauma, we think about what is it that is happening that makes somebody feel physically unsafe or emotionally unsafe. And when we think about older people, for example, loneliness has a huge impact on both physical health and mental health. We know that older people who are not lonely have reduced healthcare costs, and they live longer, and they have higher self-reported levels of mental health. So in terms of so they're all of the reasons about why we need to think about trauma. We know that some groups are disproportionately impacted by trauma. So an unfortunate aspect of trauma is that when you experience a traumatic event, it can make you more vulnerable to other traumas. So if you think about homelessness, for example, and you talked about James's story, so James experienced grief, and that impacted on his mental health. Then he started to use drugs and he ended up in prison. Traumas can happen in prison. Traumas can happen when you're rough sleeping. James speaks about the conditions in which he was sleeping in, under bridges, in tunnels, and in sheds, until he found a bed and was given a bed by COPE Galway in the Fairgreen Hostel. So all of those things are traumas, and they all interact with each other. So the reason why we're interested in trauma is that the science has never been so clear now in terms of the impact of stress on and trauma. So there's been huge advances in brain imaging techniques. So we understand more now about the human brain than we ever did before. People who work in frontline services always knew this in their core. So people who work in frontline services, particularly in community-based services, so services for the community, in the community, have always traditionally worked from a sense of community and connection and compassion. And they knew in their core that there was something right about the way that they worked, but they didn't always have, the scientific explanation for it. So what trauma-informed care has done is it has taken the neuroscience and the psychology, and it has said, yes, something as simple as being compassionate and providing connections, providing emotional safety, all of those things have an impact on the way in which the brain is working and in the way the brain is wiring, particularly for children. So we know that when people have experienced stress and trauma, that it impacts on your feelings, on your thinking, and on your behavior. Sometimes trauma is messy. Sometimes when we think about trauma, we think about those images that we can see of a sad child sitting there holding a teddy bear. That's one part of trauma. Another part of trauma is that it can make people very emotionally dysregulated, and that can look like anger. And people can be described as challenging, but they're actually really, really deeply distressed. When we understand that, then we can create services that operate from an evidence-based perspective. We understand the impact of stress on thinking. That in turn has an impact on staff. So when you work in a frontline service and you're working with people who are really, really, in their boots, and they're really, really distressed, and you're getting up every day and you want to help people, and sometimes that can be really challenging. So when we have that framework of trauma-informed care, it also allows us to remind ourselves of when people are traumatized. Sometimes this looks difficult and challenging, and that reduces the burden of stress on staff. The science on stress and trauma is really, really clear in terms of how it impacts on thinking and on functioning. And, in the clip there where we saw, the different services that are being, one thing that jumped out to me, there was a couple of things that jumped out, but one, when talking about who are being supported, they've had to in homelessness, or there has been issues in relationships, was fun. When we stress and trauma in it's a rupture experience. That rupture, it activates our response system, and that's bad for it releases a whole load of hormones, really bad for children because their little bodies are being developed. So sometimes in a world that has become output focused, we forget about the things that actually matter, the things that actually make a difference. Trauma-informed service, those things. So children, human rights of the child, children have to play. And more importantly, actually, and having fun, the stress response system in the body, it means that there's less impact on children then, and it reduces physical and their mental health. Another important, so I been doing over the last few years has been talking about the amount of trauma that exists in our how we design and deliver services, so that who struggle to use, people who are experiencing the most adverse communities can access services, and that's an emotional safety. That I've been thinking about in the last few years. I want trauma. I live in a society where we have repeated cycles. Traumatized children becoming traumatized communities. So what COPE Galway is doing exactly what you're supposed to do when you're thinking about trauma, is thinking trauma by doing advocacy. So by going out into the school relationships, that's saying beyond trauma, plans, key working case systems, means that you have a whole system that supports families and older people. So beyond trauma. So finish on some words. James gave his story of his grief, his mental health difficulties with drugs, up in homelessness, and now point where he has returned to education, and he to pursue a career in youth work. So he said, I didn't know how to be myself, or physically. I didn't be alive anymore. And when he arrived at Fairgreen, treated him was so kind and so friendly. He'll never forget that moment. It just felt like something had. I immediately felt, and no being will ever reach potential if environments where they feel safe. So when people are safe, they have physical health issues and other social problems, costs a lot of money, personal cost to the individual, and has a rate. So by giving full to organizations that create safety, we reduce across other systems. For having me, and to COPE Galway for all of them over the last year and for the next few years.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Touched on in terms of saying to focus on the things that make a difference, encouraging us to hear. That's why we're on the journey to becoming an organisation in our work, and why the value that this have in making a positive impact on lives and the communities. So now, our annual report launch, I acknowledge the power of connection we share as we work together. Whether you helped fund our work, whether you've been a supporter for several years, you stepped out to raise vital funds, donated at Christmas, or contributed, whether you did a garden, you braved the cold Galway Bay waters, or prepared a nutritious meal, whether you've worked or volunteered with us for a few weeks or for several years, we thank you sincerely. COPE Galway is built on a foundation of community spirit and the belief that together we can make a significant difference in the lives of people who need support at a difficult time in their lives. Our work depends on this support and is evident throughout this annual report. As you review our accomplishments over the past year, we hope it reignites our shared commitment to pursue a more just and compassionate world. Working together, we hold on to our vision for a community where every person is valued, cared for, and supported at every stage of life. Thank you.